So welcome to Nuneaton Bedworth. I'll give the leader an opportunity in a moment to give us an oversight of what Nuneaton Bedworth does, but before I do so, make sure our telephones, phones and mobiles are switched off or put onto silent. I understand that we may actually be being filmed this morning from the gallery, so I would want everyone to be aware of that. I think that's something we have to live with, and we're fine with that, that's fine. Okay. So, Dennis, thank you for inviting us to Nuneaton Bedworth, and perhaps you could give us an overview of Nuneaton Bedworth from what I've seen through.
Well, very good of you to say, Chair. We are very proud of becoming one of the first non-constituents to join the West Midlands, but I think we saw that was the right way forward for Nuneaton Bedworth right from the beginning. I'm very pleased you've been to join us today. As far as we're concerned, we're not only the centre of England, we're the centre of the world. And we feel that there's a lot to see in our two towns, in our borough. We've grown in 1974 when we first joined with Nuneaton and Bedworth first joined together. We had a population of 104,000, we're at around 126,000 now. We are the most urbanised district in Warwickshire outside of Coventry. We're the smallest, but in fact I think the second highest in population. Warwick just pips us on that front. We are the world's inventor of Passport to Leisure. If any of you have got a Passport to Leisure scheme, first one was invented many years ago in Nuneaton and Bedworth, and we are very proud that still continues with free swimming for under 18s and senior citizens. So we've been able to retain many of our services. We've had massive cuts like everybody else. We've lost 53% of our grants, but we've managed to retain most of our services. We are in a more difficult position for next year. I think I'll probably say the same for everybody else in the room. So we are having to make some very, very difficult decisions in the coming 12 months. But Nuneaton and Bedworth has had a proud tradition of public service, as I'm sure many of you have, and we hope to go forward into the future with that. We've just celebrated, which is why I wasn't at the last meeting, our 60th anniversary of twinning with Rouen in the centre of France. It's celebrated this year, and if you were to travel about, you'll find a lot of things named after Rouen. Rouen Ringway as you came in, Rouen Fountain has just won the best roundabout in Great Britain 2017. So I could actually bore you all morning on the tourist line. Plenty of hotels if you want to come and stay a little bit longer, conference facilities, etc. So please do come back.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey, that's really helpful. Apologies for absence. I've been advised of Councillor Roger Lawrence, substitute by Councillor Peter Bilson, Councillor Steve Ealing, there's a substitute Councillor Ealing here, Councillor Lee Jevons, Councillor Sean Davies, Stuart Tow and Steve Hollis. So those are the only ones that I've got. Jazz, have got any others? Yeah. Any indication from the floor? No. Declarations of interest in any at this point in time, or otherwise when we take in the reports, if people identify something they should be giving us a declaration of interest on, we'll take it accordingly. Moving to item 1.3 on the agenda, the previous minutes of the meeting of the Friday the 28th of October. In essence there for noting, but does anyone want a correction to anything made? Is it?
Yes, can I just draw your attention to page 7 and 2.1b, the investment form. I have had some correspondence from Nick Abel, who was at that meeting, if you recall, on behalf of Jonathan Browning for the LEP, the Coventry Warwickshire LEP. And the concerns that were raised, he is a little bit concerned, which I think is fair, that it wasn't absolutely accurately minuted. So can I put forward some words that he has asked for agreement to go into this, and also which I will then move it forward into a proposal that I would like just to put forward. His words for the minutes were that that we should add, I'm trying to work out where it is, it's on the next page actually, it was resolved, that before before the second paragraph, the proposed resolution and report set out significantly changes to the previously proposed constitution of the investment board and was produced as an addendum to the board papers less than 24 hours before the meeting. This is his words, which fair enough. So he has resolved that because of the urgency to constitute the investment board, it was agreed to proceed with the resolution below, subject to the issue raised above being discussed and agreed within the investment board. So those are proposals. However, I just want to add, and this of course was not agreed, but it is as a result of that, I recognise that we have not moved forward that resolution in the interim period, and I have got, because we will be meeting as an investment board on Monday, and this is a very hot issue which we need to nail. And my proposal is that we set up immediately a small working group with, my suggestion would be Nick Cable, if that's agreed on behalf of the LEPs, the three LEPs, a legal officer on behalf of the constituent members, also James Aspinall as senior officer, and myself as well, to resolve the solution around actually, one, the membership, and two, the voting. And just in final format, we need to do some work on that pretty urgently. My suggestion is that we bring that back to the meetings in January. Now, I'm not quite sure, I haven't got in my head the layout of the meetings, but I think it needs to be owned by the investment board and it needs to be owned and agreed by this board. So that's how I would propose it goes forward.
Sorry, David.
Get to the past here. You want taking points on the...
Well, I just want to resolve this one first.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we can take points on the minutes.
So in essence, I think that what this is proposing to expedite the issue around the investment board and the outstanding issues. A meeting is convened as soon as possible, and then a subsequent report we will brought back in January. That's what we're proposing, isn't it? Is there a general consensus? Yeah. Okay. So that's agreed. We'll go on that basis. Fine. David.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. It was just a matter of the Okay. It was just on the completeness of the minutes. I noticed in 3.1 on page 10, I recall that at the last meeting there was a debate about the mayor's powers and the cabinet structure, and that very interesting debate we had doesn't seem to have been included in the minutes. And the other point on 4.1, because these, I appreciate there's a later reference to the Mental Health Commission, but of course these minutes stand alone as a record of that particular meeting. And I think it would have been helpful to have noticed that Sean Russell was actually a serving police officer currently, Chief Inspector, and it would be helpful to just put that in. I note very kindly the Councillor also did acknowledge that myself and the Chief Constable, of course, had made him available to do that work. I thought it would be helpful to have that noted in the minutes. Thank you.
I think the consensus is that we would accept that amendment and we'll make note accordingly. Yeah, Sean Russell is an acting police officer and that you did support the proposal for him to participate. Thank you. Any other amendments? attached to the papers this morning at 1.4 the forward plan, which will come to every board. We have said previously, if people want things added to the forward plan, they need to speak to the clerk, to the board, and they'll done accordingly. It's for noting. Does anyone wish to take anything out? I notice actually on December we have still Health and Wellbeing Board terms of reference. It is in fact the Wellbeing Board terms of reference that will be brought on the 9th of December. Just for noting, are we all content with that at this point in time? Subsequently, Izzy's point on bringing back a report that has to be put on the forward plan somewhere accordingly. Okay with that? Fine. Then moving on, I don't really have any chair's remarks, unless Keith's going to tell me I have some chair's remarks. I think in essence we're making quite a lot of progress with things, although there's a lot going on within the organisation. I think as we move into the new year, we will see some further progress with regard to sustainability, how we take forward the delivery of the items that we've got within the combined authority. But I do know from the stuff I'm receiving and hearing on radio, for instance, or on television, that quite a lot of our members are quite active now in the promotion of the combined authority. Just as a matter of interest, I went to Cannock on Wednesday to the Kingswood development proposal, which, as you know, we put £7.5 million into, and was able to meet with the deputy leader of the council and with the developers. And although I was asked to stand in a very muddy field, which I refused to do, because my shoes would have got messed up, and the whole thing went really well. So there we go. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to substantive items in the minutes in the papers now. It's a combined authority governance issue, and in essence it's the Audit and Standards Committee update. The paper is there for you. We have actually identified a chairman for the Audit Committee, but we will take any points. So David Lane, we're proposing to be appointed as chairman of the Audit Committee within these papers. Does anyone wish to raise any matters on the paper itself? No? Okay, so I'm asking for approval of the minutes of the Audit and Standards Committee on the 21st of October 2016 as Appendix 1. Approve the revised terms of reference of the Audit and Standards Committee at 2. I am in fact meeting with David Lane, who wants to meet to discuss what role the Audit Committee may play to support our work, and I think he'll actually meet with some of the other Cabinet members to also talk about what their roles are. That's the recommendation I'll be making, and equally to the local enterprise partnerships, so that audits are fully appraised of the arrangements we've got in place within the combined authority, so just by way of information. Minutes of the Transport Delivery Committee held on the 3rd of October at 2.2 in the report. Fairly comprehensive. Does anyone wish to raise any points? Laura, do you want to add anything to this? It's fairly self-explanatory, isn't it? I went through them. It basically, in essence, talks about all the things we previously agreed, but certain things which the Transport Delivery Committee will be taking forward in their own right. But equally, there's issues there around low emissions delivery plan, and there's a particular issue which relates to taxi bus within my own local authority area. Yeah, fairly comprehensive. Are we all accepting those? Agreed? Thank you very much. Sorry. Yeah, mayoral scheme update at 3.1. Chris, do you want to give us an update, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just a very brief update. We are progressing. We will be coming back to the board on the 9th to seek your consent to the order. Discussions are ongoing as we speak with DCLG. Non-constituent and constituent lawyers meet on a weekly basis to go through the proposals, and basically it's an iterative process as we go through it and raise areas of query or concern with DCLG. They then come back and amend and so on. The two key areas that we're still trying to sort out, the biggie is the unanimous, and these are the unanimous votes within the establishment order and the constituents voting in the unanimous way. We are getting movement on that. We're waiting for further wording on that to come back from DCLG. The other area, as we know, is the whole issue around financing arrangements. There will be a separate, as we've mentioned previously, a separate finance generic order that will be for all the CAs, And in there you would expect to see things like non-transport borrowing, which still hasn't been agreed. Although we think there may be some movement on that, we still haven't got any agreement. Well, that's not just us, that's all the CAs. All in all, we are on track. The individual consents from the constituent authorities start in earnest at the back of this month and wrap up by the 6th of December, and then the final consent that comes from here will be on the 9th. DCLG will then write, Paul Rowson will then write to us, and the proposal now is that they're laying in Parliament on the last Monday before recess. So they're still on track. A little bit of nice news in a certain extent in terms of our stance. We were the outlier when we actually sat down and talked about the programme with DCLG. All the other CAs were there. Well, all the other CAs suddenly woke up to the fact that it just was not possible to get the approvals through by the middle of November, so they've all actually moved to our dates now. So it's nice to be shown that we weren't thinking completely out of the box. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions or points which to be raised? No? Okay, so we are in essence that we are. I took the matter of my scrutiny board on Monday. Everyone else has taken the matter forward, but certainly it was well scrutinised within Solihull, and we go forward with our process going up to full council before we approve the order for placement. So, has anyone actually approved it? Have Wolverhampton approved it? I'm not quite sure. You approved it, have you? Any other constituents have approved at this stage? No. Okay, that's fine. Okay, thanks for that, Chris. We now go to a matter that's been outstanding for quite some time. The establishment of an independent review panel for mayoral remuneration. So the paper's in front of you. There are a number of things we have to approve. I just raised the point in establishing item 2 within the report to seek an independent representative nomination for the panel from each of the constituent authorities. It is recommended in 2.4 that these may be drawn in essence from the independent remuneration panels within each of the local authorities. Now I know some haven't got them established. I've got one established in Solihull, but I think that might be what we're talking about by way of an independent member of that mayoral remuneration panel. So I'm simply asking you to agree the establishment of the independent review panel, seek an independent representative, authorise the clerk in consultation with the chair to confirm the panel appointments, agree the terms of reference in Appendix 1, which are fairly straightforward, that the clerk be authorised in consultation with the chair to undertake any necessary actions to ensure the timely production of the report, to receive the report from the independent remuneration early in the new year for consideration of an approval level of mayoral remuneration. David.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a couple of comments. I see that the panel will be reporting for the meeting in February. I couldn't see it in the forward plan that it would be discussed in February. There may be some job applicants by then who might be having some passing interest in knowing what the salary of the job is of mayor. On page 43, you talk about the deputy. I wonder if it's anticipated that a deputy to the mayor, who may have a very considerable amount of work to do in certain circumstances, whether any thought has been given to the remuneration of the deputy to the mayor. And the other issue that crosses my mind on page 43 is the issues for consideration by the remuneration panel. And you have over the page on 44 matters to look at, significant matters to look at, and you talked about other mayoral schemes, etc. The one you've left out, of course, is the role that is the approximates most closely, of course, to the Mayor of West Midlands, and that is a police and crime commissioner, because I cover that geographical area and also have executive powers. So I just wondered if that needed to be added to the list as to one that may be taken into consideration. The only other point I've made is that when it comes to being independent, I know some authorities have an independent review panel, I think that the review should be done entirely independently of officers and councillors currently on local councils. Thank you very much.
I'll just ask Keith to just give you a technical response, basically.
So we're happy to take on board the PCC. Obviously, I think the context of how many powers you've got versus the current mayoral scheme will need to be taken into account. We will need to review this on an ongoing basis. So this piece of work will be taken forward, but Chair, I have to inform the board that at the moment DCLG is saying to us that they might be prescriptive in the way they have to determine this. They're currently considering it. So the problem you're in is it's getting closer to the election. We haven't got an answer, so we need this answer, but by the time we bring this answer back to you, they may or may not have come back to us with what we have to do. So we want to get this piece of work done for you, but it may be overridden by instructions from DCLG, but happy to take on board, within context, the PCC's role as well. Thank you for that feedback.
Anything undermines the role of the remuneration panel, in essence, they bring the report back to us for consideration, but we will put that clause in the forward plan to satisfy the point you've raised.
And any thoughts on the possible remuneration of a deputy?
Yeah, happy to do that, Chair.
Right, so we're asked to agree those recommendations. Are we all quite content? Yeah. We now move on to the current situation with regard to devolution. I'm going to hand this over either to Mark or to Katie. So Mark, do you want to give us a summary of where we are at this point in time?
Thank you, Chair. So following actually the most recent discussion, which was earlier this morning, this is the position, reported just a little earlier actually also to the programme board. So along with London, but for different reasons, we remain right at the top of government's interest list around combined authority support and further devolution agreements. I think that's a really important place to start. The expression actually used was favoured child. I would have preferred favoured adults, but never mind, we'll get there in due course. But that's how we are viewed. And the comparison with London is simply because of London being the capital. Clearly it's an important consideration for government, but the West Midlands is there out as the regional economic driver in terms of rebalancing the economy in the government's eyes. So that's really important. As we know, the government's been reviewing its approach to devolution, and it's becoming clear that the autumn statements will be a very different beast from ones that we've previously seen. What we're hearing is it will be brief, and that will be unusual, strategic, and might possibly be unusual, and that the speech from the Chancellor in Parliament will be short as well. So what that means for us in reality is the autumn statement, as had been signalled earlier in the year in fact, where there's less reliance on fiscal events to make announcements about things, the autumn statement may have something to say about the West Midlands. The least likely is that it's actually in the statement. It's slightly more likely that it could be in the Chancellor's speech. But what's most likely is for us to be referenced in a very constructive way through the wider media that comes off the back of the statement. The next point to make is that the autumn statement will be followed in pretty short order by the end of the month by the local government settlement, and it's going to be moving into the settlement that triggers, yes, there's a number of surprised noises around the chamber at that point, but actually it will be moving into the local government settlement and post-local government settlement phase that we really start to get action on what's going to be agreed to next. So it's the coming weeks and months that remain in this year and into the new year that are going to be the important moment in terms of crystallising what we've been calling devolution 2. Okay? And maybe the final point I should make is, which I also made earlier, the style of the autumn statement submission that we were invited to make, which wasn't without some critique, turns out to be the right style because it's a good balance of looking ahead, longer term policy driven devolution, in other words our long term ambitions for the combined authority, with fewer specific kind of moment in time shiny bauble asks in there. And it seems to me that whilst the government's position hasn't fully crystallised on how devolution is going to quite be set out for the future, we are definitely being given messages that we're on the right tracks, which is to continually negotiate off the back of medium to long-term policy positions. And that will set us up really well for coming off the back of not the autumn statement so much, but the local government settlement. And as I said, getting some real traction later this year and into the early new year. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions to Mark?
Thank you, Chair. To you, Chair, or to Mark either. You mentioned the autumn statement as it would raise that matter here. We were asked as members of the Compliance Authority for input to government on the autumn statement. I made some comments about the non-constituent role and try to get the government to recognise the non-constituent role and to, what can I say, keep it up or give us some more so they can recognise it. I know you said you're trying to do what you can to make those knowledge in an appropriate way. I'm not sure if I've got any comments on that now.
Yeah, so what we did, you certainly made some reference to it. So what we did, I think, very late in the day, I think we adjusted some of the narrative within the submission that we sent, which is, in essence is quite high level. But I think the point that's just been made is we now see it as an iterative process going forward. So I think there's opportunity to take some of those matters on as we travel on that journey, really. On the point you make with regard to, and I think it's a point well made, about the non-constituent members and their future roles and having some recognition within government that they're a very important part of the combined authority within its geography. We are proposing to take forward early next week a letter to Sajid David, which does raise some of the points you raised about the non-constituents role, and actually asking government to give some consideration when they're talking around devolution as to what non-constituents can actually gain from this going on.
I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Chris?
Chairman, unlike Bill Hartnett, I'm still in the list of observers awaiting membership, and my members are very frustrated that we're still there, having made the decision to become a non-constituent member in January of this year. So I wondered if Mr. Rogers can give us some clue as to when the Devo 2 negotiations might bear some fruit, so that we can move up a category in status.
Technically, shall I ask Keith to just respond?
So we do want to put you on the next order, but we do need to work with DCLG, I'm afraid, so we're in their hands as to when the orders go through. So
we're against their timetable in essence. I think that's what we said. It's not that you don't have status here, because obviously you do by your contributions, but in essence it's when we get the advice from DCLG. That's my understanding. Chris?
So we've no idea of the timing of that.
Chris can help us in a bit more detail.
It's in the order I mentioned earlier. They've accepted all the proposals in terms of non-constituents. That's going to be laid in Parliament at the end of this year, just before the recess. It will probably take, subject to the will of Parliament, it will probably take about 6 weeks, mid-February, late February. We should have that confirmed. You will be a non-constituent.
Mark, do you want to answer?
I think the only reassurance I was going to give is that which you've given to Councillor Harnett as well, which is whilst the governance plays itself out along the timelines that we have to follow, the actual dialogue with government about devolution and inclusive dialogue, and those two things sit comfortably with each other.
I think that's where we are. So yeah, it will take time, but it is in train. Okay, moving on then to more substantive issues around some of the portfolio responsibilities. Pete will give us an update on the work of the Mental Health Commission at 4.1 within the papers. Pete.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. People will have the papers attached to pages 45 onwards, so I don't intend to go in too much detail with, I think, which outlines some of the excellent work that's been undertaken. I would draw the board's attention to the recommendations on page 45, which is firstly to note the progress made by the Commission, and thirdly to consider and support the proposed actions and future work. But importantly, in point 2, which is to endorse the Condordat approach that the Commission has taken. And if you turn over the pages and start to have a look at some of the emerging things that are coming out of the Commission, which I'm sure all of us will agree is some exciting strands of work and really showing partners working together. So from 3.1 downwards, it talks about some of the areas including supporting people back into work, providing safe, stable places to live, and looking at mental health and criminal justice amongst others. If you turn over the page of 48, some of the exciting things and again certainly with our partners with the police as much as others, the launch of the Zero Suicide Ambition I think is a really exciting initiative, and also working with our other partners looking around the primary mental health care, which certainly from my own point of view is one of particular interest, looking about implementation of care. So I move the report on that basis. I'm not sure if Steve is around and maybe wants to... I couldn't see you, Steve. I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add just before we put it to the board.
Nothing in particular, being Chair, only to say that we are moving forward towards the completion of the draft document, which we hope to produce and put out into the public domain in the early part of next year. But as Councillor has just indicated, it will be concordat for action, so we will be seeking agreement from all the partners with whom the Commission has worked, the actions that are proposed. And those are actions rather than recommendations. So there are already strands of work being undertaken. Resources have been secured for some of these pieces of work, both locally and from central government as well. So really to commend to you the contents of the report.
Thank you, Chair. Can I, on the back of what's just been said, and the excellent work that Councillor is doing in this regard, can I just report as well from the Police and Police and Crime Commission's point of view, is that we see this as the first area where we're tackling public sector reform. And we've looked very closely at the recommendations, and until we are well advanced in ourselves in looking at the work we're doing, not just the recommendations, but as has been said, actually putting them into action. Some, of course, the things that the good things we're doing have already been in action for quite a few years. I'll be refreshing my police and crime plan, which will be published next week, and mental health and the activities and actions that are suggested here will play a very prominent part in that, in support of the combined authorities' work. We're also looking in the next few weeks at our budget setting and how that may impact on the work the combined authorities is doing and how we can work in support of the recommendations. And there'll be things like the mental health treatment orders that we're pressing ahead on as well. Very important part of the work for us. And of course we're very mindful, of course, we've witnessed our efforts and involvement by putting a third of the cost of the officers you have doing the work. There's only one small matter that I'd like to raise, is in 3.5, mental health and criminal justice system. There are two bullet points there of activity. What I would ask that could be considered is an addition to the 2 bullet points. The 2 bullet points really refer to when things have gone wrong and failed. The magistrate's course and then people coming out of custody. What I would like to see added in there is how we prevent people with mental health problems getting into the criminal justice system in the first place. And much of the work that we have been trying to do has been working in that regard in recent years. So if that could be considered, that is something that we'll actively work with the Commission in ensuring that it's an integral part of what we do. But very much welcome the work here. We will play a constructive and active part in making sure it's a success.
Bill.
Just a quick point, if I can. Excellent report. Thank you very much, Councillor. I point out the wider implications. I know it's constituent councils and the LEPs clearly some of us like just outside of the Richmond area. Was there any input from LHS and colleagues to this report outside the mental health area, of the combined authority mental health area?
So I'll go through some of that. So just from my own experience of the last few days, my own mental health provider, of course, does work across a much wider geography than just the Mets. And I think linking to the next report, I think the view is that this piece of work in critical combined authority, because it does go across those boundaries, it's not just simply the Met area. So for instance, we have two providers in the Birmingham and the Black Country, and I think there's a view that this work is combined authority business basically. So I'm sure that will be picked up.
It will be shared wider, it's really excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just take it easy.
Thank you. Firstly, may I congratulate you on this work, because it's really moved on quite a long way, and there's some very exciting, innovative stuff which is going forward, which I think would see this region as a flagship and really quite an example nationally. So I think there's some really good stuff. A couple of points. One which is somewhat similar to Bill, but actually it's the role of non-constituents that, again, like the Police Commissioner, we want to ensure that we have a vital role in that, and I think it's really important that we can add to it, and certainly within Warwickshire I see a strong role for us to play to support this work and to help all of us. I particularly wanted to pick up on the first bullet point in 3.6, which is around the launch of the Zero Suicide Ambition, which I think is fantastic, absolutely right. What I just wanted to say, actually, at our Health and Wellbeing Board last week, we have agreed this in Warwickshire already. So I think it's recognising what goes on in the constituent and constituent member boards already, not necessarily duplicating and reinventing the wheel, and also recognising the sovereignty of our own boards and making sure that actually we're not trying to supersede or override that sovereignty, because it has to work for the place, and it has to work for that area within the partnership arrangements that we already do have. So anything that we can already share with you, we would be delighted to do so. Anything that we can add to, again, we will be very happy to help.
Thank you for that. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Firstly, thank you for all the very kind personal comments with regard to the report. Of course, I can't take all of the plaudits. I'm not doing that again, maybe on reflection, I will take it. After all, I am the one of the democratic election in 2018, it will help me lead this. But I mean, in all seriousness, work with regard not just to Sarah Norman as the Chief Executive, work with Steve's undertaking, obviously David with regard to the Police and Crime Commission, all of the agencies in there. And I think as both Izzy and Bill said, this is a piece of really positive work that shows by partners working together. It actually shows them a combined authority approach where we're already ahead of the curve with regard to what's going on elsewhere in the country. And I think it's a really good example of real action, which is then coming back to us in a report outlining a number of really detailed proposals that are going on. Just touching on a couple of the specifics, David made the point under 3.5 with regard to the work. Then I'm more than happy to take that on board, but I think there's elements of that as well we need to recognise with the report that I'll be moving shortly. Part of that also comes under the STP process. So I think whilst we need to be absolutely endorse what you're saying, I think we need to recognise where we are with regard to the roles of the STP as part of that, and again work collectively in order to be able to address that. Izzy raises, I think, a really well-made point. It's something that I do want to cover in the next report with regard to well-being, and that is absolutely the autonomous work that will be undertaken by health and wellbeing boards are actually there to supplement and not necessarily for the combined authority or for the Mental Health Commission to be duplicating that excellent work that is already going on. But really, as the recommendation 2 makes clear, is really to be working with people as opposed to actually setting out and duplicating on our own areas which we recognise there will be excellent work that's already taken on. So hopefully that covers it up until now. when you hear my next report, hopefully you'll hear some of the further reassurances with regard to the Health and Wellbeing Board and the Wellbeing for the Combined Authority input into that.
Any further comments before I put the recommendations? So the recommendations are to note the progress made by West Midlands Mental Health Commission, endorse the concordant approach that the Commission has taken, considering give support to proposed actions and future work to implement them. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Moving on therefore to Wellbeing Board update at 4.2. Again, I hand over to Councillor Lowe.
Thank you very much, Chair. Again, it's my duty to move that, so apologies for anybody listening. I've got the perfect place for radio, but I'll move quickly. There's two recommendations with regard to that. The first one is to agree that the Wellbeing Board be established as set out in the report, and secondly to agree to update the Council and Governance arrangements accordingly. I would draw members' attentions really to page 53, which I think outlines the detail, specifically around 3.5 and the suggested membership. But what I did want to do is also use this opportunity really just to clarify where I think that the work of the Wellbeing Board is, and importantly where the work of the Wellbeing Board is not. And I think that partly picks up upon Izzy's contribution to the item further previously. I made the point the last time that I spoke with regard to wellbeing boards are there to work with health and wellbeing boards in each and every council and adding value rather than actually cutting across and undertaking that work. And I think that's an important position that we need to continue to reinforce each and every time that we do. And it points out the proposals that the chairs of each and every health and wellbeing board are actually members of the wellbeing board. That I think is an important point to make. The second point I would like to make, and again it's talking to members of many councils, is with regard to the role that we take as part of the combined authority with the STP process, because I understand there's quite an element of nervousness, whether that be with the councils that we're in control of, or indeed the role of ourselves here. So I think it's important at this stage that the Wellbeing Board is not here to endorse the STPs in any way, shape or form. The role of the Wellbeing Board is to seek coherence and understanding between the Wellbeing Board and the work that the West Midlands Combined Authority undertaken. For example, other contributors on other items, not least the West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, has mentioned the importance of the work streams around public estate as well as the Mental Health Commission. So I think we need to take that on board. And then finally, Chair, the only comment I wanted to make is really with regard to the scrutiny of the Wellbeing Board, and that's the board itself will report directly to the West Midlands Combined Authority Board and its work programme, and be subject to the scrutiny of the overall West Midlands Combined Authority scrutiny arrangements, as indeed it should be. So with those points, Chair, I'll move the report.
Yes, second.
Sorry, me again. Very happy to note those points, and I think that's really helpful because again the place-based around our own health and wellbeing boards is important, the sovereignty around that, the priorities of those, and actually the broader remit of our own health and wellbeing boards. So it's actually being sure that we understand the focus of this around how it works to what our expectations of the combined authority are in this respect. And I think there was a time when we sat around and thought, well, actually what we're not going to be doing is taking over the broader health issues around it, but really focusing on the work that comes out of these commissions. And you've identified the mental health, which is great, and I really think that's important. Also, I think picking up on the value of good housing to well-being and ensuring those are built into it, which I think is really important. There was a couple of other things, more particularly identifying what is already in place, and again, as being a practical person and not wishing to reinvent the wheel, The LGA has already got a regional network of wellbeing of adult social care needs and indeed health and wellbeing board needs. And I think it would make sense that there is a resource there which is funded, and the ability to try to get someone else to pay for some of the work that we might like to do seems to be eminently practical. And so whether we can try and capture that and use that as an ability to enhance our own.
Thank you. I'll take some more contributions. We'll start, Councillor.
We appear, Chairman, to have a fairly complex setup here, and I note the questions we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to complement it. I can take all of that on board, and there is a well-established network of health and wellbeing boards, and in principle I'm happy to support the set-up of a combined authority health and wellbeing structure of some description. And I'll support this paper for starters. However, looking down the 3.5 on page 53, it is suggested that membership should include blah blah blah. Again, I'm not going to get picky about that, but I also, in my wider role, work through the District Council's network, who are feeling particularly marginalised nationally in the health and wellbeing agenda, for the simple reason that Public Health England still have a huge chunk of activity and money to throw at it, and the balance is mainly therefore with the upper tier authorities in two-tier areas. And I'm not saying that that is mishandled. I didn't in my own area, because the person who chairs the board is actually listening to what I'm saying right now. So consequently, that is not an issue. What I'm saying is that perhaps district councils, which are deemed to be on the periphery of things, do actually, through their mainstream activities and their environmental health work, have strong links which I think could be useful. And therefore, I'm just wondering if we ought to make space for a district council representative on this, at least to observe and comment on the various deliberations that take place, because I don't know that the role of districts is particularly well appreciated in the wider sector.
So, just to clarify, is that a recommendation you made from Councillor Slade?
As a proposal, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll ask Big to... I'll just say one more contribution and we'll try and sum up on Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Pete, for the report. Particular reference to paragraph 3.44 about the STP and the combined authorities input in there. Can I say joint up thinking is needed? West Midlands isn't an island. My residents in Cannock are more affected by the Black Country STP than they are by the statutory STP, but they're running at different stages, so that they aren't running in tandem. It's important that the combined authority does input into Staffordshire as well as into Black Country and Birmingham. We all know the system isn't great, it's all been mostly in private, which isn't good. We have consultations in Staffordshire which are just totally meaningless at the moment because nothing's being told about what's happening apart from closure of lots of community beds, which has led to the resignation of the Staffordshire SDP chairman last week. So we're not in a great position there, but can I ask Peter to ensure that combined authority inputs into the Staffordshire SDP as well as the Black Country, because it does affect my residents just as much as anybody else.
So I'm a big sole chairman and I haven't resigned yet.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I'll take the contributions in reverse order, certainly with regard to the STPs. I think it's a point really well made and happy to take that back. I think it's also worth at that point reiterating the view that a number of us actually have that dual role, both the role within the combined authority and then also the role as leader of one of the Metropolitan Borough Councils, where I've been fairly consistent with my view with regard to calling for transparency with regard to the whole of the process of the SDP, so that we can make sure that that engagement is made. And that's certainly one with my local authority, Dudley, I will continue to pursue. And I think again it links into part of the previous conversations we were having previously. Chris's point with regard to section 3.5, I think it's a point well made. With everybody's agreement, I'm more than happy to take that back and to look into it. I think the points that he raised with regard to certain of those areas at the periphery and the value added that that can bring on board, we should do. I'm conscious that we don't have a meeting group that ends up being the size of Wolverhampton Wanderers FC would be proud of, but I think taking that on board, I think it is important also that we get all the relevant players contributing effectively. So I'll certainly take that on board. Lastly, Izzy's point with regard to the point I've picked up, note and accept all of the points that you raised, specifically draw attention to the LGA resource, which I think we've been naive not to explore because there may well be some areas of added value. So again, I will feed that back and ensure we can do whatever we can do with that. Other than that, I think that answers all the points that we raised, Chair.
Any other points before we take the recommendations? Slight amendment to two, I think, on the basis of what Councillor Lowe's just said. Are we all content? So one is to agree that the Wellbeing Board be established as set out in the report, noting the comments about its oversight of STP, which it's not doing, but in essence in areas such as public estates and areas around mental health, which supports the proposition, and agree to, I think, review and update the Council and Government's arrangements accordingly. I think that's what he's just committed to with Councillor Sage's recommendation. So we're all content that we go forward on that basis? Seemingly we are. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Moving on to another major section, economic growth. I'm going to pass over to Councillor Seeley, the Birmingham Council, to give his report. Councillor Seeley.
Thank you, Chair. The main detail in the first appendix, which is the performance management framework, there is also a much more sort of technically based appendix as well. It really is a case of obviously informing the board of where these is in relation to this, and obviously the framework's there. At the board itself, there were suggested changes to those performance management framework details. Some changes were made there, and then really it's an opportunity for anyone to suggest at this stage things that should be part of this, but it is an ongoing process. It says in 4.1, the SET board is going to continue to update and refine the performance management framework of the Superset on the 3-level geography. And really, it's a case of just asking for comments in relation to how people feel about those, about the framework. You'll see initially in a graphics-based approach, which hopefully is but as I say, there is then quite a technical paper afterwards as well, drilling down into the details. So I'm just presenting this to the board on the basis of giving the board itself some input here, but obviously the actual set board itself continually keeps this monitored. Thank you very much.
Any comments? I mean, from my perspective, it seems a comprehensive piece of work, and I think it's been well put together in the form it has. But it's a highly complex matter. So,
I wouldn't be taking the comments for that. Nothing that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Like you, John. With regard to page 58, I just wanted to make the point with regard to the vision for the health indicators, obviously it'd be useful for that to feed into the wellbeing board as well, and I think there's a couple of other points which demonstrates cross-fertilisation really with a lot of the commission work that we can start to feed into those other areas. Other than that, a fantastic report which I applaud Councillor John Dempsey for.
Thank you very much indeed.
Other comments? So in essence, we're asked to endorse it. Sorry. We are asked to endorse the draft WMCA set performance management framework and headline KPIs supported by the West Midlands Combined Authority set board. Are we all agreed? Nods around the room? Seemingly, that seems to be agreed. We now move on to a further item on public sector reform. Chief Officer West Midlands, Phil Loach is here, I think. I've seen him in the room. There he goes. Phil, do you want to just give us an update?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So on behalf of Councillor Ealing, who's the portfolio lead, you'll note that Councillor Ealing previously reported at a meeting that the Public Service Reform agenda was going to take a stock take to allow it to redefine what it was looking at. We're now in a position to bring a report to the Leaders Board on the 9th of December. On the 9th of December, we seek approval around governance arrangements and some of the outline detail which we intend to use as the platform to refine the input from a substantial set of stakeholders. Over 70 in fact that in various forms have been contacted. We hope this is then going to lead to a plan and to create some momentum around the important agenda of public service reform.
Any questions or comments to Chief Officer Loach? No? Fine. Thank you for that. We'll report accordingly in the next round. That's fine. Okay, we're therefore moving fairly rapidly on to any other business. I would remind members that we have a combined authority scrutiny workshop on the 25th of November at 9:30 to 1 p.m. at the Courtyard Room, Park House, University of Birmingham, Edgbaston, B15 2RT. I think the basis of this meeting is to discuss with the scrutiny chair and scrutiny members what function we'd like them to actually perform on behalf of scrutinising the work going forward with the combined authority. I think scrutiny is absolutely critical, not from the perspective of just looking at our performance, but in essence giving us advice on where they think some of our policy proposals going forward should be. I think that would be a key role for scrutiny. So all members are invited. I think you do need to identify if you are able to attend, because there are catering arrangements I think have to be made. It's not a great large place, but it's a pleasant venue. So it's University of Birmingham, Edgbaston Park Road at the Courtyard Room. So we'll note that accordingly. And everyone can go, there's no issues there. So if the leaders want to go, or the Westminster Police and Crime Commission wishes to attend, I'm sure you're most welcome, as the Chief Fire Officer or the Chairman of the Fire Authority of Westminster.
Chair, just Andre, can I just say to the Met leaders, your meeting is now 12:15 instead of 1 o'clock.
Any other business anyone wants to raise? So on that basis, we are meeting again on the 9th of December? 9th of December, so that's the next meeting which will take forward the mayoral to try and finalise those issues. We'll give the venue